Hello, America. Welcome to the Ben McCoy Show. Glad to be with you. It's been quite some time. There's been a lot going on, as usual, as we continue to monitor the total decline of Western civilization. Uh, no shortage of topics to talk about in that realm. The latest news right now, probably the biggest news to hit the airwaves in the Twitter sphere in quite some time, is the Twitter files, of course, that are being dumped now that Elon's taken over, and Matt Taibbi and some of these other people on Twitter have pulled back the covers and pulled back the curtain and shown us what's really been going on there at Twitter. And I mean, there's so much to it. I urge you're probably aware of a lot of it right now, but you really need to go on Twitter and read some of this stuff. The layers are so deep, I can't even get into all of it here. And so I kind of struggled with what to talk about with it, just because there is so much. There's, the Twitter Files 1 and Twitter Files 2, and now we're on Twitter Files 3 or 4. I've lost count with all, the document dump that's going on. And, to me, though, I mean, there's so much to it. Why Trump was originally banned on Twitter, and so many other surrogates of Trump and other conservatives, prominent people in the media, shadow banned, even though Twitter had always said, "Oh, we don't shadow ban anybody." That's out the window. They were shadow banning was their favorite tool of choice to silence people that said things they didn't like. And so. We're really getting into this realm of what constitutes free speech. Obviously, the Constitution and the First Amendment is geared towards protecting citizens from the government. The government can't silence you. The government can't punish you for what you say. That's the thrust of the First Amendment. Twitter, obviously, is a private enterprise and not the government. However, Twitter and social media in the 21st century has become the town square. That is where you go to speak your mind. We don't have soapboxes outside anymore, and town centers where people gather and people talk and share their ideas. This is where that happens. It's all online now. So it does stand to reason that if someone is denied an equal opportunity to have their voice heard online, if they are forcibly removed, from the arena in which everybody is speaking their mind and using their First Amendment speech, then you start to get into those constitutional questions. Now, what really seals the deal is what these files, these Twitter files, as they call them, have shown us, and that is the involvement of the federal government, the collusion, I should say, with the federal government and Twitter. Boy, it runs deep. Apparently, there were ongoing running meetings with the Twitter heads of censorship and elements within the FBI and the federal government. Now you're starting to get into some serious First Amendment questions. Because if they're colluding with the government, and the government is saying, here's who you need to be silencing because it's very inconvenient for us, I can't think of a more clear-cut First Amendment issue than that. And that's what we've got here. And I've taken one little screenshot out of, there's so much. You need to go check it all out for yourself, but I'm going to put this on the screen here. Now, what this is this is a note. I don't really know what the software is they're using to keep up with their what Twitter, the Twitter employees, the Twitter executives, what they were using to kind of keep up with their workflow and their meetings and stuff. But this is from the guy Yoel, I forgot his last name. He was the head of censorship at Twitter. This was the guy who was pretty much the shot caller, along with the other guy. I can't remember his name, via something. But these were the main ones behind all of this activity, silencing Trump and all the surrogates and the conservatives and the shadow banning and everything else. And why I pulled out this screenshot, a lot of it's just kind of gobbledygook, but he clearly mentions a meeting a weekly meeting with FBI slash DHS S slash DNI. That is some heavy hitting federal government agencies there. And he says that they blocked the New York Post story. This was the Hunter Biden story. And then unblocked it, and then said the opposite, and then we unblocked it again and unblocked. You know, he's kind of going over what they did there, and everybody's angry, and people are calling them idiots. But the main thing that stands out to me again is this weekly sync with FBI, DHS, DNI talking about election security. And they're talking about the hacked materials and everything, that what they were calling hacked materials at that time. They were calling it Russian disinformation, which of course we know was all a lie. It was all the Hunter Biden laptop was real, and it should have never been, that story should have never been squashed online. And it was, and the government was complicit in that. And this is just one of many different elements to this story, this saga. Monthly meeting, he says, monthly meeting with FBI. I mean, these guys had a complete connection. They were like intertwined with elements of the federal government, of the deep state, the swamp. And their job was to take marching orders from these government entities and carry them out on Twitter to silence people that the government, the people within the deep state didn't want speaking, because it was making things very inconvenient for them. And they didn't like that very much. And boy, we could have a Trump win all over again, and they couldn't let that happen. And there's even some other, there's in these Twitter files, there's even where that's mentioned, like one of the reasons that we are banning Trump is because of what happened in 2016, and we can't have that happen again. I mean, that was a comment from one of these Twitter executives. Their very motivation for banning Trump on Twitter was that we can't have him winning the presidency again. I don't know. It's crazy. It's going to be really interesting to see where all this goes in the end. I know there's going to be some lawsuits. I guarantee you. James Woods, prominent conservative actor, has already alluded to the fact that he's going to be suing some people for how his free speech was taken away on Twitter. And I'm sure there will be many more to come. There's been a lot of other conservative activists and speakers that have kind of said the same thing. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, because there's a lot going on. And you go away. Okay. And so, stay tuned for that. That'll be interesting where that goes. What else do we have here, folks? Oh yes. Man, wokeism. We always talk about wokeism. And specifically, boy, this could be another video that gets banned off of YouTube. I know it. YouTube loves, they love getting together and banning my videos. So if I mention this, the P word, pedophilia, this is the sort of thing that it's, I don't like how this is becoming normalized. You've heard of the whole MAP, the minor attracted persons. They've tried to give pedophiles a nicer name to go by. They're just minor attracted persons. It doesn't mean they've done anything wrong just because they're attracted to children. Never mind the extreme psychological damage that must be taking place within that brain to even have such a thought. These are people who just do not need to be among regular society. I'm sorry. We need to, something to protect children. But there's an all-out war on children right now. I mean, you can't, any direction you look in, you're going to see elements of it. It's scary what's going on. I mean, they are fully after your kids and everybody else's kids. They are trying to ruin children, whether they can destroy them outright or, turn their brains into progressive mush, or, create some kind of amalgamation of one of the 186 genders that they've come up with. I mean, it's a complete mess. And, a little thing took place here in the last couple weeks or so, the Balenciaga scandal, which you've probably heard of as well. This high fashion brand, Balenciaga. Oh, yes. Where all the rich and elite people can buy some ugly crap and call it high fashion for way too much money. And those ads that they put out, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it. It's everywhere. Balenciaga, they put out this ad that was seriously sexually exploitative of children, having children in suggestive poses with suggestive imagery, and even some CP information that kind of showed up in the image. If you don't know what CP is, Google it. Don't really want to say it here. And they kind of had it was like a lawsuit involving this issue, and they had this in the print ad for Balenciaga. How that applies to selling ugly handbags and terrible shoes, I don't know. But that's what they had going on. Well, justifiably so, there's been a huge backlash, even among the elite that can afford such garbage. A lot of people have burned their Balenciaga gear for good reason, and Balenciaga is saying, well, we didn't know anything about it. We're firing the guy that was behind it, and they're playing dumb, and their whole brand's going down in flames, which it completely deserves, and that's certainly a very good thing. But the fact that they thought they could get away with this is indicative of, I think, where our social climate is right now, because of all the things out there that seem to normalize these destructive, evil behaviors. I mean, this is evil. Let's face it. There's an evil spirit, I think, in charge of all of this stuff, and that's behind it and carrying it out right now. And they thought they could get away with it, and maybe several years from now, somebody could get away with something like this without any kind of backlash. I guess it was just too much too soon, and people kind of freaked out about it now. Because we've lost, everything's become subjective now. We've lost our compass to tell us what right versus wrong is, because people don't read the Bible like they used to, and they don't follow the Word of God. And it's just whatever you feel for that day, for that moment. That's what your right is, your good is. Somebody else might have another idea of what's good versus evil and right versus wrong, and it's all whatever you feel. Up can be down if you want it to, if you feel like it needs to be, and that's just where we're headed. I mean, we got these drag queen story hour thing. What is that? Who came up with this drag queen story? Who came up with the idea that we need drag queens reading stories to children in libraries? I mean, what kind of demented mind comes up with this kind of stuff? I mean, I really would like to know who came up with it, and why has it taken off, and why are parents letting their children be exposed to this? That's what I want to know. Is it just, I'm so progressive. I'm just so progressive. I let my child be exposed to other alternative points of view, and I take them to Drag Queen Story Hour to expand their horizons because I'm such a progressive parent, and I just like to open up their minds and let them see other. I mean, I think that's it's something like that. I think that's what motivates these parents. I don't think they're malicious in their intention. I think they're just completely stupid and brainwashed with all this progressive garbage going on. I think it's just kind of seeped in like a cancer and taken over, and they can't think straight anymore. They don't have any kind of clear idea of what it means to protect their children in these ways anymore. So they end up carrying them to Drag Queen Story Hour, which is just, I mean, picture 20 years ago, somebody looking at you and going, Drag Queen Story Hour. I mean, people would just faint from shock. I mean, what is that? And now it's like, oh, yeah, Drag Queen Story Hour. Yeah, we got that down the street and this town over there and that state. Everybody's got Drag Queen Story Hour. Well, this guy came along and said, well, if you're going to have Drag Queen Story Hour, let's have Bible Story Hour. Let's have, what was it? I don't have it on my notes. A Christian guy wanted to put together a thing where they're reading the Bible to children in these libraries, and the libraries have said, no, we don't want that. We want the Drag Queen Story Hour. We don't want the Bible Story Hour because, I mean, come on, somebody might get offended. can't offend somebody with the Bible. Drag queens grooming your kids, that's certainly not offensive. Nothing offensive about that whatsoever. But the Bible, that is going too far. We can't have that. So obviously there's going to be some lawsuits. As far as I know, libraries are called public libraries for a reason. They're funded by the government. They're a public institution. You can't say these people can do this, but these people can't do that. When it's a ideological divide, I mean, you remember the statue debate, I think in Oklahoma, where they had the Ten Commandments in the courthouse, which makes sense since the Ten Commandments are the basis of law and courthouses kind of deal with law. And the Satanists won their case where they wanted to put a statue of Baphomet in the courthouse because if you can have the Ten Commandments, well, we can have Satan. And it went through. They won that. And there was actually a statue of Satan. I think it was in Oklahoma in a courthouse there for some time, and he's like holding children. It's the most creepiest thing you've ever seen in your life. And it was so ridiculous that I think they actually removed the Ten Commandments just to be able to get rid of this monstrosity, this statue. But the idea is the same, that if this group can do it, then that group can do it, because we're talking about the arena of a public space here. And in theory, I agree with that. In practice, I just don't think there's enough Satanists out there to really support that this is a common view that needs to be represented in public versus Christianity, which is, supposedly still a majority view in America, probably not for very long, and maybe not anymore. But in theory, yes. If now, let's say it was like an Islamic type of expression, that I could see. I mean, there's that's one of the top 3 religions in the world. If you're going to have the Christians, maybe you have the Muslims, whatever, as long as it's a peaceful and respectable installation. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off track here. We're talking about Drag Queen Story Hour versus Bible Story Hour. And the libraries have said, no, we don't want the Bible Story Hour. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be some lawsuits on that one, I could guarantee you, because that's straight up First Amendment issue right there. And all of these kind of have a common thread of the First Amendment. I mean, we're really losing our ability to speak freely in this country, it seems, if you are of a certain persuasion. That the cultural, the forces of cultural power don't like. They may be a minority, but they've got the biggest megaphone. They've got the biggest levers of power. We've talked about it before. The academia, media, entertainment conglomerates out there. That's who holds the cultural levers of power in this country. That's who kind of decides, what the Overton window at any given point is. And and so when they don't like something, when they're all universally against it, you have a real hard time, succeeding with that thing in the mainstream. Even if it's something like the Bible, they don't like the Bible. So anyway, we're really losing this country, and we're losing it fast. And the pace is picking up every day. It's like the downhill snowball thing. The snowball's getting bigger and faster every second, and it's getting ridiculous. What else we got here? Oh, yes, and along those lines, there is an I can't speak today, off-Broadway play in New York City right now, taking the theater world by storm. It's called Downstate. And Downstate is about 4 minor attracted persons that live in an apartment together, 4 convicted sex offenders who all had illicit relationships with minors and were convicted of such to varying degrees of, shall we say, intensity. And so these 4 men live together. They all have ankle bracelets on, and they regale themselves with the stories of their illicit exploits of the past. And they are monitored by a social worker. And anyway, the story downstate, this is happening in, I think, in Illinois somewhere where the play is set. In this play, the story is that one of the victims of one of these men, who is now an adult, was victimized when he was a child by one of these four men. He's now an adult. He and his wife show up to this apartment to confront his abuser about how he's, what he did to him and hurt him and ruined his life and all these things. And he's confronting the guy. And the whole story is about how this guy who was the victim, he's actually the antagonist of the play. They make him out to be the bad guy because he's hounding this who's now an old man. His abuser's an old man now in his 70s. He's using like a motorized wheelchair thing. So he's, he looks real weak and feeble, and he's the poor victim now. And so they've kind of switched the roles of victim versus aggressor. And that's his, this guy, Bruce Norris is the playwright. That's his whole angle, that he slaps himself on the back for being so creative about. And so does the rest of the New York theater community. They just think it's just so groundbreaking, so awesome. It's just so insightful. The way they flip the script and, victim becomes aggressor and aggressor becomes victim. And they love this whole switch in the narrative thing. I mean, we're talking about a man who sexually molested a little boy. And that little boy grows up and has the opportunity and the strength inside him to go confront this man with what he did to him. And he's the bad guy. And the New York theater community is going nuts about how great and insightful and wonderful this play is, and it's controversial, and they just love that stuff. It's just so good. And they're talking about all the awards it's going to win and all this stuff. And I mean, that's another thing who cares about the New York play community, right? But it's still kind of a temperature gauge of where we are as a society, I think. That's where the conversation is right now. And that's the sort of thing that is getting people all excited, when several years back, that sort of thing would be just, it would be panned across the board. People would reject it as completely distasteful. But not anymore. This poor guy who was abused as a child is now the bad guy. How dare he confront this poor old man? And I was reading a review in the New York Post, which typically is a little more conservative in nature, and they were just going on and on about how great this play was. And the guy writing it says that he said that as he's watching the play, and the now adult victim is berating the old man over and over again, how the writer of the New York Post, the critic, the theater critic, is saying how, and us play goers were muttering under our breath, "Just leave already." This was his response to the grown victim. Just leave already. Leave this old man alone. Just leave already. And it's just maybe it's just me. This kind of thing drives me crazy, because I just see it as a barometer of where we are in society right now. These sorts of things are becoming normalized in such a way where it's not shocking anymore, and such a way where children are in danger and we don't even see it. The frog in the boiling pot thing. I think that water is just boiling. The frog doesn't realize it because it's taken place over such a long period of time. The warming up of the water, and we're there, and some of us are going, look, the water's boiling. You can see it boiling. And, the frogs of society are saying, this feels pretty good. They like it. And, there's those of us who are ignorant to the whole thing, which is probably most people. And then there are those that are behind it, it's evil. It's a spiritual, we're in a spiritual battle in this country. I always say it. We get in these political fights a lot, left versus right, Trump versus everybody else, Republican, Democrat, but it's a spiritual, at its root, a spiritual battle that's taking place. And we have an enemy who hates all of us, and he's definitely going after our children right now. And there are evil people in this world that are behind this as well. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there and everything, but it's happening. You can't deny it. I mean, the evidence is everywhere, and you could go, talk forever as to the how and whys and everything, who's behind what and what's really going on and all this. But the evidence is there. They're definitely going after the children. I mean, everything you see is, I mean, what was the stat that came out a couple weeks ago or however long ago about how, 20, 30 years ago, it was like 1.5% of people under the age of 22 identified somewhere on the LGBT spectrum. It's like, or maybe less than 1%. We're just talking 20 years ago. Less than 1% under the age of, maybe it was 25. And now it's over 40%. Over 40% of kids identify, according to some study. I don't know how true the number is precisely, but the idea is that somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of kids find themselves they self-identify as somewhere on the LGBT spectrum. And that's ludicrous because they're not. I mean, that many aren't. I think we're still at the 1-2% area of people who are truly gay or whatever it is. But it's become so chic, so in vogue to be so, some weird gender you made up. I'm half unicorn and half, whatever. And that's like the cool thing to do now on TikTok and all this other garbage out there that the kids are so addicted to. And it's a way of getting attention, which we all know children love more than anything else, is getting attention. And the quickest path to attention right now seems to be somewhere through this gender maze, and so that's what they're playing around with. And when they become adults, they'll a lot of them will just be normal functioning adults. I hope. I don't know for sure. I'm starting to lose hope on that. But as of right now, they're LGBT. The letters go on for ad infinitum now. They identify somewhere on that spectrum, and it's all part of the agenda. I don't know who all's behind it. I know the spirit that's behind it, ultimately. But I know that the children are in the crosshairs of that evil, and we see it every day, and it's just getting worse. So parents need to keep an eye on your kids and see, you need to monitor what they're doing online. And if they have that garbage called TikTok, it needs to be deleted. And if that's not going to happen, it needs to be monitored very, very closely, because that app is a gateway to nothing but bad things, let me tell you. And there, other apps, they're just as bad, the things that they're into now. So anyway, I digress on that point. But it's all about subjective morality. I mentioned that a little while ago. That's really what all this has to do with. That's what it's all about at its core. What's right for you might not be right for me. And that's a really quick way to destroy a society. We have to have a standard of morality. I mean, we always have. We've always said murder is wrong. Stealing is wrong. We've always had sets of laws that we all agree on that we're going to live under and say, yes, we'll punish the bad people that don't abide by these things. And we're all good with that. That's the way any functioning civil society is structured. You have objective morality of what is right and wrong, and everybody agrees to live under that standard. And it goes back to natural law. You could study that and everything, but we're losing that those lines are getting blurred, and it's becoming all subjective, and that's a scary place to be. And you see it with the progressives so often. If some sort of conservative is attacked or brutalized in some way, well, they were a Nazi, so that makes it all right. And it's not even that they were actually a Nazi. It's that this person decided they were a Nazi. And so that's justification enough to visit violence upon that person. It's completely justified. And we see it all the time, this sort of thing. And usually the people go free. And it's, with these DAs that we have now, who have forgotten that their first cause is to punish crime, they've become the advocates for the criminals. I mean, man, we're going down in flames. I'm telling you, it is ugly out there. Let's go on to some other things because I want to move along on some of this. You've heard about the Brittany Griner situation where Joe Biden, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to trade a weapons dealer, Russian weapons dealer, for the WNBA woke progressive star Brittany Griner that was stuck over there in Russia, but leave the Marine hero Paul Whelan over there to rot. And of course, that just goes right along with everything we know about Joe Biden, that he's completely inept. And it's just, seeing this story unfold is something to behold. Because the left is doing their usual, well, they hate her because she's black and she's gay. They want her to stay in Russia because she's black and gay. Yeah. I mean, that's all. They're programmed. They're NPCs. They're just programmed to think one way, and that's the answer for everything. It has nothing to do with the issue. Of course, I don't want any American being trapped over in Russia, but why do we have a decorated Marine hero over there when we could have brought him home as well? Why couldn't they both come home? Anyway, it's seeing some of this unfold is just hilarious. And let's see, yes, I saw this. This was a funny little meme I found. Meet Brittany Griner and Marine Paul Whelan. Both Americans, both were convicted in Russian courts on dubious charges, both serving multi-year sentences in Russian prison. Brittany hates America, Paul served America. Guess which one Biden traded a terrorist to free? There you have it. So that's where we're at. And you know what's funny? This is really funny. I'm going to see if I can find this. All right. Going to the old web here. Sheila Jackson Lee, yes, the Texas representative who always brings us such gems, is she weighed in on this thing, and she's fine with the trading of the arms dealer for Brittany Griner. And what she said was that this arms dealer, he hasn't killed any Americans. His weapons may have killed Americans, but he didn't. And people are they're like, what? Isn't this the whole gun debate thing? Is that gun owners are just universally bad because of the guns? It's not the guns that, but yet when it comes to this issue, it's this guy, he hasn't killed anybody. It's his weapons that have. It's just so funny how everything's subjective to these progressives, and how, the other part of the story is just how utterly dumb Sheila Jackson Lee is. It's just funny. Let's see, where's the line? He's a nasty, bad person, but he has not killed Americans, although Jackson Lee noted that the guy's name is Bout. Bout's weapons might have been used to kill Americans. Just always the font of wisdom that is Sheila Jackson Lee. Anyway, wanted to bring that to your attention. Kirsten Sinema is leaving the Democrat Party in the Senate. That just came out here last hour or so. So the Democrats are having their usual meltdown over that. So they will no longer have their 51 majority in the Senate. They will, however, have a majority in the Senate. I mean, let's face it, they're going to have a functional majority regardless. Because the best we can hope for is a tie on any given issue, which then, of course, the vice president comes in and ruins that for everybody. But it is good that she did that, because it shows that I think it helps to illustrate how far left the left has gone. That people of good conscience like Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin could be next to go. Who knows? He's always acted as more of a conservative than a Democrat. I've thought for years that Joe Manchin would probably leave the Democrat Party at some point. So hopefully it'll start a whole train of Democrat exits. So we'll just have to see how that turns out. What else we got for you here? Let me just go through my little thing here. And, this guy, This guy here, Sam Brinton. If you know that name, then you're going, oh my goodness, Sam Brinton. This is the Biden Deputy Secretary of, nuclear waste disposal, something like that. The guy, the transgender, bald-headed guy that likes to go around in dresses and everything else, who is a high-ranking member of the Biden administration. And just so you're going to love me for this. Just so you know who we're talking about, there he is right there. Oh, there he is. Sam Brinton. Isn't he a lovely fella? Boy, he's just, man, he just looks like a nice all-around, all-American guy there. Brinton. Yeah, once again, get out of here. Get rid of Sam Brinton. I can't look at him anymore. He has been caught for the second time stealing ladies' luggage in airports. Yes, Sam Brinton likes to find what looks to be high-priced women's luggage in airports on the baggage carousel and take it as if it was his. Let's see. He's been accused of stealing from the Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas, and a felony warrant has been issued. This is a high-ranking member of the Biden administration, okay? This guy, he is an MIT grad, and he joined the Joe Biden administration earlier this year as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Office of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the U.S. Department of Energy. And he's been accused of stealing another woman's luggage at the airport. So a felony warrant was issued for Sam Brinton, Deputy Assistant Secretary, sources said. The charge is for grand larceny with a value between $1,200 and $5,000, record showed, and no other details. Brinton was charged with a felony last month. I mean, we were just talking about a month ago. Last month for allegedly stealing a woman's luggage at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport on September 16th. The theft reportedly occurred when a woman arriving from New Orleans went to the baggage carousel only to find that her navy blue Vera Bradley roller bag was missing. I mean, this guy's got good taste, you know. He's a one of these high fashion. I bet Balenciaga graces this guy's apartment all over the place. I'm sure he's right on board with all of that. The female victim, who estimated the bag to cost $2,300, confirmed to police that the navy blue bag that Brinton took in the surveillance footage indeed belonged to her. Brinton later took an Uber to the Intercontinental St. Paul Riverfront Hotel, where he checked in with the blue bag that wasn't his, according to the criminal complaint. He later returned to the airport on September 18th with the same bag in hand when he departed for Washington, D.C. to get back to work for the Biden administration. On October 9th, police questioned Brinton about the bag, and if he took anything that did not belong to him. Brinton reportedly responded, "Not that I know of." 2 hours after the interview, Brinton then allegedly called the investigating officer and admitted to not being completely honest. According to Brinton, he mistakenly took the navy blue bag, kept it for 3 days in the hotel, but it was a mistake. Due to him being tired from his trip and got nervous when arriving at his hotel room, he realized the bag belonged to someone else. Yeah, right. Not knowing what to do, Brinton then allegedly told the police he left the woman's clothes in the hotel room drawers and took the bag with him anyway in order to keep up appearances. You can't make this stuff up. Brinton has allegedly not returned the bag to the female victim, and police said no clothing was recovered from the hotel room. Imagine that. His first court hearing is scheduled for December 19th in Hennepin County. Man, you know, we're in good hands, folks. I just want you to know the Biden administration is taking good care of all of us. And if you need evidence of that, there you have it. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. We're in good shape. So anyway, get out of here. How do I get rid of this guy? Still trying to work the old video equipment here. And what else do we got? Oh, yes. Actress Jennifer Lawrence. This is interesting. Not really because of the story itself, but for what it reveals. Where it, let me find the story. Jennifer Lawrence, who was in the movie The Hunger Games, she did an interview with Variety magazine and made a pretty telling statement. Here's what she said. This is her talking. I remember when I was doing Hunger Games, nobody had ever put a woman in the lead of an action movie because it wouldn't work. Because we were told girls and boys can both identify with a male lead, but boys cannot identify with a female lead, and it just makes me so happy every single time I see a movie come out that just blows through every one of those beliefs and proves that it is just a lie to keep certain people out of the movies, to keep certain people in the same positions that they've always been in. Apparently, this idiot thought that female leads were born with her in 2012 with The Hunger Games. This is not a smart person. This is also not a person who has ever heard of movies like Alien with Sigourney Weaver. Or, I mean, you can go back to Pam Grier in the 70s and all the movies that she did. Barbarella, Jane Fonda, 66, 67, something. I mean, it goes way back. There in the 1920s, there was a Joan of Arc movie made where Joan of Arc was the lead female role, and this is 1920s and early days of cinema. Linda Hamilton in the Terminator franchise. Bridget Fonda, she's done several movies. Point of No Return. Mila Jovovich, Fifth Element and Resident Evil franchise. Michelle Rodriguez, Fast and Furious. Demi Moore in G.I. Jane. Uma Thurman, the Kill Bill franchise. Gina Carano in Haywire. Angelina Jolie in a whole bunch of movies like Tomb Raider and others. Charlie's Angels, all the different Charlie's Angels remakes that they've done had all female action cast. It just goes on and on and on. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to think that you're the first one? And I don't even know. I mean, how do you arrive at that? Is she really that dumb, or is she really just living this bubble that thinks that everything was created for her and around her and because of her? Does she really think that she's that much that women are that victimized that there's been no such thing as a female lead in a movie until she came along? And it just shows you the mental breakdown of progressive thought, that these people can think these things. And I say these people, as far as I know, she's the only one saying anything like this, and I hadn't heard any kind of updates about since. I'm sure people told her about all of the movies that existed before she came along with female leads and much better actresses than she is, and all the movies that they did. And so I don't know, but to me, it's just, she's one of these woke, progressive, far left activists, like so many of them are in the Hollywood world. And so, I mean, that's just, so many of them just, they think the world revolves around them and that they invented, everything that there is. And it's funny to hear those types of things sometimes and see just how far removed from the real world people like Jennifer Lawrence really are. So I just thought that was a little bit of a humorous little story to bring to you. So anyway, let's see. I'm going through my notes here, and it looks like that's about it. That's all I've got for you this week. So thanks for tuning in. Please tell everybody about the show, share, pass it around. Send me an email, benmccoyshow@gmail.com, or find me on Twitter @benmccoyshow. And love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.